Everyone, Brittany Chapman here, CEO and creator of the Reset Method, which is my method for coaching women over 35 who have 10 to 50 pounds of pesky fat that they want to ditch for good. But more importantly, who are ready to finally find peace in their journey, really work through some of those mindset and behavior and lifestyle and habits that have really been kind of like holding you back or keeping you stuck. Shake things up a bit and join in a community of like-minded women who are truly celebrating and rooting you on every single step of the way. Now, I've been in the coaching industry for two decades, 20 years, you guys. I've been helping other women hit their health and wellness goals. And I am more passionate with each passing day about what I get to do because of women like Debbie. So Debbie is one of my clients. She's in her reset. She's a few months into her reset, but Debbie has a very special and unique story. And so I've invited her on here today to chat a little bit more about what's been going on with her, what's going on in her reset, in the hopes that it will not only touch your heart, but inspire and motivate some of you out there who may be kind of stuck and making excuses as to why you can't hit reset on what you've been doing. Now, Debbie, thank you so much for joining me today. It means the world to me. I appreciate you being.
Problem. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
I know you're so busy and I know you're like a big boss, babe. So I really do appreciate your time. What I would like you to do is just take a minute if you can and just kind of give a quick blurb about like who Debbie is, what she's up to, so they can get to know you a little bit better. And then we'll dive into some of the questions I have for you.
Awesome. So, hello everyone.
That's
My
fine.
is Debbie, and I am so excited to be with you guys here today. I just turned 40 this past year. I am a wife to an incredible husband. I am a mom to an incredible 9-year-old boy named Harrison. I am a best friend to many people and an involved family member. And I am also an elementary school principal. And so it's the end of the school day. All the students have gone home, and I'm joining you from my principal's office right now. So that's a little bit about me. As a person to set the context, but I think one of the unique aspects of my story is that almost 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, and I was 39 at the time. And I had no family history of breast cancer. And after genetic testing, I also did not have the BRCA genes. And so it came as quite a surprise. And I went through almost a year worth of treatment, which included chemotherapy for 4 months. It included 30 treatments of radiation, and it also included some significant surgery to remove the tumor as well as some of my lymph nodes. And so I am not quite a year post-treatment yet. I'm about 9 months out since finishing.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with me. And I think it's really important for the women watching. Like I said, you're a boss, babe, but you also have like quite the story. And I think it's very easy for anyone to come up with excuses and reasons as to why they can't exercise, why they can't meal prep, why they can't get things in. And it's been so awesome just to watch your evolution of where we started to like the strength and power that you're unleashing now. And that's what I want to jump in and cover today. So first, I would love if you could share just a little bit about your journey, with breast cancer. You don't have to get too deep into things, but share a little bit about your journey and then also how it's impacted your perspective on prioritizing and really carving out space for your health and fitness goals.
Mm-hmm. So when I was diagnosed, as I mentioned, it was a really big surprise to me. And I would have led what I would have said to be a moderately healthy lifestyle leading up to that. I generally thought about what I ate. I would work out, but there might be intermittent times that I wouldn't be working out. And so it it was really surprising to me that this came out of what seemed to be nowhere.
Yeah.
And very quickly, my health was no longer what seemed to be in my control.
Yeah.
And I think that was the scariest part of it all is, of course, being faced with a life or death situation,
Hmm.
but also the decisions about my body were no longer um, were no longer just mine to make, that I had to make them alongside experts in the field. And so, due to the type and nature of the cancer that I had, not all cancers require chemotherapy, but because mine was not growing in
Hmm.
relation to the hormones that we have
Yeah.
um, as people born females, then I had to have chemotherapy. There was no other choice. And to put it quite bluntly, I was exceptionally sick
Hmm.
throughout the chemotherapy time. I was in a lot of pain.
Hmm.
Um, from a look perspective, I looked very sick. I lost all of my hair, including my eyebrows, eyelashes,
Yeah.
everything. And I would walk up a set of stairs and get winded. And that took me a really long time to come to terms with, knowing that the medicine I was taking was ultimately meant to save my life, but also made me incredibly sick and at times immobile,
Yeah.
as a previously healthy 38, 39-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And so when I considered all of those things, and I would say, the medicine and the treatments worked for me and I'm in remission now, it was a very big shift in my thinking about, okay, I now have this time in front of me. Nothing is guaranteed. What are the things that are in my control
Yeah.
that I can help my own self move forward? And I knew that focusing on my health and wellness was going to be of the utmost importance.
Hmm. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's, important for people to know, like, this is not something that you did nothing wrong to cause this. Like, this is just something that happens to people sometimes, right? And I think, you saying like your body no longer felt like it was yours. There was choices that were being made that didn't give you autonomy, really, because you had to make them based on what the experts were telling you. And I think it's also important to know, like, it did shake you up. It did give you that perspective. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on this was because I want people to know, like, not everybody needs, obviously, that type of a shakeup. Unfortunately, like, doesn't need that to happen to get this perspective shift.
Mhm.
And also, a lot of people that do go through a similar situation to you don't get that perspective shift either. They kind of take it a different way, where they're like YOLO, and they go
Mhm.
down a completely different path, right? So I think it says so much about you and your character and the things you value and prioritize in your life. And that you chose to be like, no, like, this isn't going to win, and I'm going to take that power back, and I'm going to take that control back, and
Mhm.
this is what I'm going to do with it. And it's just like, says so much about you, and I'm just so proud of you. And I still remember getting, just a little background story, Debbie and I've been kind of exchanging messages, like, back and forth for some time, and I'd been chatting with her a little bit during her treatment process and stuff. And I still remember when you reached out and just said, like, you're ready to start your reset, and you were very, very, like, new on the side of, treatment finishing. And I was just like, let's do it. Like, I've been holding a spot for you because I don't always take one-on-one clients on, right? And it was just, yeah, it was like such a good message, and I still remember getting it, and it's just been really fun to watch that journey so far.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so I guess, like, what motivated you to embark on, like, the reset program, and also, like, starting so quickly after chemotherapy? Like, what was your motivation behind both of those decisions?
So, I will say first and foremost that I am always inspired by my sister-in-law Jen, who is also a client of Brittany's and has been for many years. And
Yes.
so, long before I was ever contacting Brittany, I saw my sister-in-law taking control of the priorities of her life and really putting herself first, again, within a health and wellness perspective, and knowing that if she wasn't taking care of her own self, she couldn't take care of her family around her. And I saw things like her establishing healthy boundaries and really honing in on the things that were important to her and her values. And so it was much more than just, you
Yeah.
know, the amazing workouts that you helped her complete, and the food and the nutrition. It's the holistic look of the reset method and really looking at the whole woman and who
Yes.
she is. And it was so inspiring to me to see that work that she was putting in, and the success that she had, and the admiration that she had for you, that I also had, kind of looking from afar from a
Mhm.
social media perspective. And I knew that when my time was ready, when my health was okay enough, that I wanted it to be you that I was working with, because I also know that we connected on other levels,
Yeah.
from our past, and those things, I think, really solidified the fact that you were going to be the right person for me. and
Aw.
and so I got going so quickly because I was feeling like I was at a place, and I also knew that you were going to meet me where I was at. And
Yes.
so when I compare the workouts that I did 3 weeks following finishing
Totally.
treatment compared to what I'm doing now,
Yes.
they're drastically different. And
Totally.
that's because they needed to be. And I
Yes.
think feeling safe that I was coming into working with you, knowing that my my body and space was going to be cared for in
Yes.
where it was at
Yes.
post-treatment, gave me the courage to be able to start so quickly.
Oh, I appreciate you saying all that. One thing that I love that you said is like the holistic side of things and like treating you as like a whole woman and an individual woman. Like I have a method, I have definite pillars to my method and things that I, operate within that I'm very firm on, I guess I should say. But there's like so much adaptability within
Mhm.
that because I really do approach each woman that comes into their reset so uniquely. And that's from the way I interact with them to the kind of language we have between us to like you and I are both glam girls. So like we've
Yeah.
connected, on that level. um, and just different things like that. And I do, it did mean so much to me that you trusted me when you were literally at your most vulnerable. Like obviously you're in your most vulnerable in multiple stages of being the initial like, hey, you have cancer to
Mhm.
treatment processes to feeling like immobile to feeling and being immobile. There was multiple stages, but you are truly in a very vulnerable state once you've finished all of that because now it's like, okay, well now there's no more appointments and now am I good? Like what's
Mhm.
happening? It's like all of these and now I'm a different person. You're never going to be the same person. You can't be.
Yeah.
You're a totally different person. You're a new woman and it's like I felt because I knew I was going to cry. I felt so much like responsibility for that. And I knew that I had to approach it from such a soft, like safe spot. And I knew how to do that, and I was so excited and felt so honored. Sorry. I was so excited and felt so honored that you trusted me enough and like via Jen too, right? Because
Mhm.
obviously you got to know me through Jen and actually talk to someone who was my client versus like what people see on social media and whatever, right? And so I really would just like felt so much responsibility in being in that special, special place in your journey where you're like rediscovering your strength and power. And I just was so honored and yeah, things have changed a lot. Like now your workouts are like completely different because you get the Brittany workouts,
Exactly.
not like the watered down version. But um, how have you found the transition back into a fitness routine post chemotherapy, both physically and emotionally? As I just touched on, there's a lot of emotional stuff that people don't, unless you've been directly, you have someone in your direct circle who's gone through cancer and you've really been there with them and you know them, or you've gone through it yourself. There is a huge emotional impact
Mhm.
to that. And so, how have you found the transition back into fitness post chemotherapy?
I first want to say that I really appreciate you acknowledging the emotionality of it. Because I also knew that I was going to cry
Yeah.
during this. Because one thing about survivorship that you don't think of when you're in the midst of the really hard
Yes.
is once, like you said, you're done and there's not as many appointments and you don't have doctors
Yes.
checking on you all the
Yes.
time, is you're worried about it coming back
Yes.
every day.
All the time.
It's
Constantly.
it's something that crosses my mind in some way or another every day.
Every day. Yes.
And so for me, coming back to fitness has been really empowering in the sense that it truly is something that is in my control. And I know, and all the studies will show that a woman who is active, particularly women over 40
Yes.
that are perimenopausal or
Yes.
perhaps in menopause
Yeah.
already, that being active, living a healthy lifestyle, taking care of their wellness and their mental health,
Yes.
their chances of disease drastically drop.
Yes.
And so to me, that was a place where I could have impact
Hmm.
on my own life, because it could come back. And again, that wouldn't be my fault, but I know that I'm going to do everything to try to make that not a reality for
Yes.
me again.
Yes. And I love that. And there's so much, again, so much power in that taking of the control back. It's like this happened to me, but it's not going any survivorship story is like that, whether it's, I remember like my personal story where I endured something, in my younger years and I had to overcome it. And I remember like when I decided to take back control, I was like, this person doesn't get to control me anymore. Like I actually get to control because you feel out of control. You feel so
Mhm.
controlled by it and it's so easy to get consumed by it and then be a victim and then feel sad, you feel sorry for yourself and why did this happen to me and let lash out in bad ways and all this other stuff, right? That can happen with survivorship. And so I think when you really do take control and realize like, listen, like yeah, we can never truly control external outputs. We just can't, but we can
Mhm.
control ourselves and our reaction to things and what we do with that. And that's what I love so much about you is like you're powerful. Like whenever I think of you, it's like I think of powerful. And I just like I love that because even maybe we can share some of your photos when we're like putting this up, but just to see you like the transition where like your power was taken from you and you can see it like it's and now just like see your hair is like you got a flow going on and it's like your makeup and like everything, right? It's like you've regained that power and that's like so special and so like so important for people to see because that's so inspiring and
Mhm.
motivating, right?
Yeah, and I would be happy to share those photos and so people could see the physical transformation from both a
Yes.
fitness perspective, but also,
Yeah,
when I started with you, I barely had any hair. And
totally.
and
Like
so
initial check-in photos, like your little haircut. Yeah.
exactly.
It's just fun. Yeah. All right. What changes have you noticed in your body and overall well-being since starting the reset program? This can be physical changes, this can be just like how you feel. Like what changes have you noticed?
Okay, so there's been what I would say to be three really, really important changes. The first is just my strength. It is absolutely
Crazy.
incredible. Um, I know that I shared this with you at a recent workout, but when I look at the amount of weight that I was lifting or working with back in
Yes.
June of
Yes.
2023 versus now in March of 2024,
Yeah.
some of these have multiplied by, 10 times
Yes, totally.
what what I was doing for. So just the physical strength, and even noticing, when I'm walking up and down stairs, because the chemotherapy did have an impact on my heart muscle
Yeah.
as well. And I could barely walk across a room without getting winded. And
Yeah.
now that's not a part of my reality anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that that's been really huge. The second thing, and I know I'm kind of following the model of your check-in
No,
here.
it's okay. I
Um,
appreciate it.
but the second thing I want to talk about is learning about protein and the importance of my protein intake, and how in the past, thinking about how, well, I've had two boiled eggs with breakfast, and then I've had, this little bit of something at lunch and this little something
Yeah.
at supper, and realizing like, oh my gosh, like that's like
That's not
one
enough.
quarter of like what I should be having. And
Totally.
understanding the impact of, when for whatever reason, let's say that there's a day that I don't achieve my protein
Yeah.
target, that I notice that in my body from a
Yes.
energy perspective.
Yes.
Um, and so that has been a really big thing as a part of this method. And then finally, just again, the non scale wins,
Mm,
because I was somebody that was exceptionally focused on the scale from the age of 18 to
yeah.
before getting sick.
Yep.
And just understanding, like, when you look at the transformation of my physical nature, and
Mm,
there only being a 10-pound difference,
yes.
but it's like that's a whole different person that
Yeah.
you're looking at, and that is
Yes.
strong, that has made huge
Yes.
gains in their fitness. And so
Yes.
that, like, really starting to take some of the focus on and fear of the
Yes.
scale. Yeah.
Yes. And I love that so much because, I obviously always talk about like the 10 to 50 pounds of fat that women feel like they want to lose. But the thing is like fat loss and weight loss are two very different things. So when we're hyper focused on the scale, like you were for 2 decades,
Hmm.
we it's like we want to see that number go down at any cost, at restriction, at like cutting out things, like not enjoying life, like doing whatever we need to do, burning calories and going for runs and doing all these things that aren't inherently bad things, but they're negative when we attach them to, we just got to see this number go down, and then beating ourselves up if it goes up 1 pound one day, and not truly understanding the scale, but then also not understanding body composition,
Yeah.
right? And so fat loss, which yes, you've only lost 10 pounds on the scale, but you've lost more fat than 10 pounds because your body's different. Like you look strong and powerful, and you've got definition, and like your bum has changed, and
Mm,
your face looks thinner, and like all of these different things. You have like this X frame going on, and like these like oblique lines, and lots of cool stuff happening right in your body. And so
hmm.
scale is like the least important thing to focus on, but it's like the number one thing that the majority of women focus on because they just
Mhm.
truly don't understand, how to kind of get past that because it's so ingrained to us.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. And I'll say the comment around the physical changes in relation to
Mm,
the 10 pounds, that was when I was looking at the before and afters back in December. Like, when I look
yeah.
at the before and afters now, and how much farther I've come
Yes.
even since then, both from a weight perspective
Yes.
and a physical perspective,
Yes.
has been huge.
Yes. Yes. Huge. Yeah. Okay. How have you felt like being part of the reset method has supported your recovery and helped you regain strength and vitality? I mean, we've kind of already covered some of this, but is there anything you feel like we haven't touched on?
Well, what I'll say is, going back to when I introduced myself and I talked about, being somebody who really values both my family that I'm close to, but also my chosen family.
Mm,
So, my really close friends that I have. Um, when I consider in the past that cycle of restriction and then binge eating, that I had gone through many different times.
yeah.
And knowing that I am somebody that's pretty social, I like going out with my best friend usually once a
Having
week.
fun. Yeah.
I like, going out to dinner with Steve or with other family members. It was really important to me to learn how that can all fit in together as
Yes.
part of the reset method, and being able to reach out to you and say, hey Brittany, here's the menu of the place that I'm going to, what would you
Yeah.
choose? And
Yeah.
then just still being able to go out and enjoy delicious food, but
Yes.
making the right choices.
Yes. Yes. And I love that so much. And it's one of the things I love teaching women because it's something that I personally struggled with for years because through my eating disorders and then bodybuilding and like literally being a slave to a meal plan and an approved foods list and not feeling like I could have things unless it was a cheat meal day and all of these like
Mhm.
negative behaviors that a lot of women come into the program with. And it's one of the things that I overcame. And it's like I was like, oh wow, like this actually is possible. And so many women don't believe it is. They believe it's all or nothing. It's like I'm going like all out and I'm getting like all of the things and then I'll just get refocused in a few days or Monday or next month or whatever.
Mhm.
Or it's like I got to be super like on thing and I can't go out anywhere and I can't do anything. And it's like, no, girlfriend, like you can do all the things. Like you can look a certain way, feel a certain way, have strength, have energy, watch your body tightening and putting muscle tissue on, and you can go out, but you can't like, I always say, like, you can't do all the things all the time. So it's like,
Yeah.
I can't have pancakes and bacon and waffles and like whatever for breakfast and then go for like a burger for lunch and then like go ham on some nachos later and like finish it off with like a Slurpee and a chocolate bar and then be like, why am I not hitting my goals? Like, isn't this flexible nutrition? Like, that's
Yeah.
not balance either, right? So it's like figuring out how to do those things. And that's one of the things I love doing is like when clients are getting started, it's like, I'm going here. What do I have? Like, what would you have? Why would you have it? How do I work it in? How do I track it? And I think that's one of the things that does make me different is I am very hands-on and I'm an educator by like heart and like I love teaching, right? So I don't have any formal teaching degrees or anything, but I love teaching. I love educating. And
Mhm.
so I love being able to teach women those aspects. And I think that's like, I love that that's been one of your takeaways.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. Have there been any particular workouts or exercises that have been especially meaning or empowering for you?
So, I really have always desired to want to be able to do a pull-up.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that has always seemed outside of the realm of possibility. And so when I discussed that with you as a goal, we started working in, of course, the assisted pull-up machine
Hmm.
at the gym that I work out in, and then of course I have the bands at home. And I actually just wrote this in my check-in this
Oh,
morning
good.
that I am noticing a huge difference at home
Yeah.
um, by my with my ability to be able to complete the pull-ups with the bands, but also when you look at the amount of counterweight that I had
Yeah.
um, on the assisted
Yeah.
machine at the gym, it has gone significantly down by like I
Totally.
am now pulling up, 45 more pounds than I
Yes.
was when I started.
Which is
Uh,
crazy.
which is super crazy. And I
Yes.
would say it's one of those things for me that it's almost likened to the cancer journey where it's just like you're trying to pull yourself up
Totally.
out of something. And so I've really loved that. And then I'll also say when I was recently introducing the leg press,
Yes.
because as somebody who used to as a teenager, I used to be a competitive cross country skier, and I've always felt that my legs are super powerful, but I didn't feel like that coming out of treatment.
Yeah.
And again, you and I setting those very specific goals around my leg press and then being
Yeah.
able to surpass them within the month and look at
Yeah.
again where I started versus what I'm lifting now is like
Totally. Mind
amazing.
blowing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and it's so fun to have those movements. And I will also say your Bulgarian split squat like weight increase has been insane. I got so many messages from sharing that in my story. People are like, "What a beast. Like that's amazing. Like good for her." Like it's so cool. So I love the parallel between like pulling yourself up at a cancer and like pulling yourself up because that strong mental imagery is actually so important. Um And a lot of times when people are working out, they do it for the wrong reasons. It's like, again, to burn calories. You're like, oh, I need to look a very specific way. And not that there's anything inherently wrong with those things again, but it's like what we're attaching it to, right? Which is our
Mhm.
self-worth. And I
Yeah.
think instead when we focus on like taking that mental imagery is like, I did this and I can also do this, right? And it's
Mhm.
like transferring that over. I think that's so incredibly powerful. And it's something that I do too when I'm working out. I've had people like be like, oh, you look so serious when you're training, but it's because I'm envisioning myself as like an 85-year-old like grandma, like literally. These are the things
Yeah.
I think about when I'm training. But I'm like, okay, if I'm 85 and my daughter waits till she's 40 to have a baby, like I'm gonna be a grandma at 80. And it's like I always think about these things, right? And I think it's that powerful imagery in our mind does help us manifest strength and power and like that consistency that we need to keep going.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah,
agree.
love that. How do you prioritize self-care and wellness in your daily life, especially during challenging times?
I would say this is still an area of growth
Yes.
for me. And I think that again, in my post-cancer survivorship life, that for being in a state of, I'll call it crisis, for
Mm,
such a period of time, I think that my body's stress level was so high that I was constantly in that fight, flight, freeze
yeah.
response. And I'm just continuing, I'm working on getting myself out of that. And I'm certainly
Yeah.
way further ahead
Oh
than
my
I would have been
God.
this time last year.
Yeah.
But the things that I do is I look to my support people for help. So, for example, when I reached out to you last Thursday and was
Yeah.
like, I'm not doing well, Brittany, and
Yeah.
I know that I haven't gotten some workouts in lately. And so I reached out to you and I talked to my sister-in-law Jen about it. And I said to my
Yeah.
husband, who's also an amazing support, like, I really need your support because things are hard around right now. Life is busy,
Yeah.
work is busy, and it's feeling like too much, and I'm not able
Yeah.
to attend to my own self-care. And
Yeah.
so, though having those supports have been really important. I will
Yeah.
also be very open and say that I'm somebody who's had the support of both a psychologist and a specialized psychologist for women who are 40 and under who have experienced breast cancer to work through some of the really hard mental health pieces that come
Yeah.
after such a life-altering experience. And
Yeah.
so I think the theme of those things are really looking to the people who are going to care for you the most to be able to lean on during the really hard times
Yeah.
has been what's lent itself to my success. So for example, 2 days ago I came home and I was exhausted, but it was beautiful. The sun was shining.
Mm.
At, and Steve said, I got everything here. Go for a walk in the sun.
Mm.
Get outside. Right.
Love
And
it.
so it's those things. And then I reached my step goal that day. No
Yeah.
problem. So
Yeah. And I love so many things about that because I think, often people think it will be just enough to hire a coach. And it's
mhm,
like, I'm in your corner and like, I got you. Like, you sent me a message and I was like, I responded immediately, right? It's like,
yeah.
I've got you. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to like give you tools and like whatever. But you also have Jen, who's also in the reset method, who also has to, is a busy mom with like different busy seasons of life and things happening and chaos at work sometimes and whatever, who gets it, right? Who can like talk you through it from like a peer perspective or a friend perspective, right? And then you have your husband who you can literally who's like in your circle of influence, like in your home, right? Where you can be like, listen, I need you. And I do this with my husband too. It's like, I need you to step it up this week in
Mhm.
terms of laundry and picking up the kids a little bit more and whatever. Like most of the time I got it, but like this week I don't got it. So
Yeah.
like I need you because like little Brittany is sinking into like a little hole and it's like not going to be good for anyone because like that's going to explode, right? So
Yeah.
nobody wants an exploding Brittany.
Right.
But it's like, and I think, you have all of that. And I think that's so important because some people have nobody, they have
Mhm.
no one, which isn't good. But then they also like maybe hire a coach and they think, oh, my coach is going to be all of those things. And it's like, I can be some of those things, but I can't be all of those things.
Mm.
And also something like, oh, I'm just gonna, my husband's gonna help me or hold me accountable. I'm like, your husband like probably thinks you look great and isn't gonna be hard on you because he doesn't want the like after, it's like there's different hats that different people have to wear. And I guess ultimately and finally, you're also seeking therapy and professional, guidance in that regard, because I can help with flipping scripts, reframing things, shifting perspective, like that kind of stuff. But I am the first to like not step outside my scope of practice, because
Mhm.
I have high regard for people that do have that higher level of education and all of those things, right? And so
Mhm.
I think that's another huge component because they can take it a step further and really help you lean into those things responsibly and work through those emotions responsibly, right? And I think the fact that you have all of those different people in your corner, it does make a massive difference. And then also just like touching base on what you said, this is still a work in progress. I think that's also important to address because, a lot of time people think, oh, I get this sometimes in my DMs where it's like, can you just like do a meal plan for me? And I'm like, no, girlfriend, you don't need another meal plan. In fact, that's like pinned on my post. Like, you don't need another meal plan. You don't need another workout program to follow. You don't need an AI generated meal plan or workout program or whatever. Like, what you need is to work on the things like up here and in here that are like holding you back, that are keeping you
Yeah.
stuck, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's like so powerful because a lot of people just never really get there. And also, we're like 9 months into your journey, basically, and it's like you're still working on these things. Like, you had a busy couple of weeks, and like, unfortunately, one of those weeks, like, workouts didn't happen, but like,
Mhm.
it's all good because
Yeah.
you treated yourself gently. You were honest with me. You kept reaching out for a run. You're like, okay, I can't keep going this way, or it's going to like not be good. So I'm going to reach out and take those steps that I need to take. Right. And you're
Yeah.
9 months into your journey and we're still working through this. Right.
Mhm.
And I think that's important to highlight. And it's not to shame you, but it's just important to highlight because I think a lot of times people think there's a quick fix out there and there just really isn't. Like, this shit takes time and it takes work.
Yeah, and coming to it with the growth mindset that there are
Yes.
going to be ebbs and
Yeah.
flows in the whole journey, whether it's, the weight loss part or your ability to increase weight or the busyness of your life and
Mhm.
having to kind of figure out those ebbs and flows are
Yeah.
really a huge part of the method.
Yeah. Totally. Um, so one thing I wanted to ask is like, what advice would you have like to a woman out there who's either facing similar, health challenges that you were when you reached out, or just like women who are having a hard time prioritizing themselves or believing they're worth it, or like justify like having a coach in their corner, making that like, because it's an investment to work with me. We all know this. Like,
Mhm.
I don't sugarcoat that on my social media. I don't pretend it's $100 a month. Like, it's an
Yeah.
investment for sure. Um, but what would you say to like a woman who's like struggling with that or feeling like she's not worthy or whatever, and is considering starting their fitness journey, either post treatment or just a woman who's watching this, who's been like sitting on the sidelines, watching all of you guys like getting these great results and just not feeling worthy? What would you say to her?
So I would say you're 100% worth it, and that the biggest advocate is your own self. And so when I think of even connecting with you back in January before we got started
Yeah.
in June, and I was still in the midst of chemo at that time, and I said there's going to be a time. And so I knew in that small DM to you that that was a message of self-advocation going, it's not time yet, but there will be a time.
Mhm.
And whether it's in the realm of hiring a coach, which I will say has been the best decision of ever,
Thank you.
I I also think that learning the skills of advocating for yourself by taking care of yourself and doing things like getting a coach, those things flip into things like healthcare.
Yeah.
So as much as I was taken care of by the most amazing physicians and experts, there were still things that I needed to advocate for my own self. Pain medication, psychology services for my son, with a specialist
Yeah.
who could attend to his needs as a 9-year-old. And
Yeah.
so I think the more that we take care of our own selves and learn how to be a self-advocate for our own selves, the more that we can take care of the other things and people in our lives. And
Yes.
so I would say stop thinking about it and
Yeah.
just do it.
Totally. I think we can overthink things to death. And I think it's like we can always find reasons not to, right? It's like, well, we were gonna take a vacation. Well, what if like this happens? Or there's always like all these like what ifs. Like people always think they're promised time. And I'm not to be morbid or negative, but like we are literally promised nothing. And so, people are like, oh, I'll do it when my kids get older. I'll do it when we have less things to pay for. I'll do it this time. I'll do it this time because they think they're promised time and they think that something time is going to somehow come for them, and it doesn't for everyone. But also there's always going to be things to like spend money on and like take our time and whatever, focused away from our health and wellness goals, right? And so um I'm with you. I'm just always like, just do it. Like, you don't know how good it is until you start. And every woman that gets started, like, one weekend is like, man, I should have done this like so long ago. I'm even going to bring up like one of your great friends, Krista, who recently got started. When she reached out to me in her message, she even said, I don't need a coach. Like, I'm not even looking for a coach. Like, I don't even know why we're like, I was like, why are we talking? Like, what's happening? But then, like now she's like the biggest advocate for like, oh wow, like I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know how truly amazing this is. And like I do need a coach. Like everyone needs a coach, you know? And it's just cute to see that perspective shift, because once you have like an actual coach, not just a trainer writing you a program or whatever, but like a woman in your corner who's like empowered and is like, I'm gonna call it, I'm badass, like who's empowered and
Yeah.
badass and like knows the path and is like, I'm good. And so I'm like, I love bringing other women up. Like that is like my whole mission in life, is just like bring all the women up that want to like come into my circle. And yeah, just like, just do it. Like you have literally nothing to lose, like everything to gain, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And just going back, like there's always stuff to spend money on, and we
Oh
spend money
God.
on stupid shit all the
The stupidest
time.
things.
Like,
Yes.
and
Yes.
when I think of it, of what the past 9 months has meant to me and done for me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, gosh, like had I not had this unexpected journey with cancer, like I just wish I had been with you before, you know?
Yes.
So,
Totally. I saw like a thing the other day and I was like, this is so interesting. It was like, you can spend 27, all it takes to spend $10,000 in a year is $27 a day. And I'm like, you easily spend $27 in a day, especially if you don't, even if you don't do it day to day. It's like you go out one day and you spend $300, right? It's like, whatever.
absolutely.
It's so easy to do in our day and age. And so whenever someone's like, I don't have the money, I'm like, you definitely do. You're just prioritizing other things right now, and that's okay too, right? But you don't know what you don't know. And yeah, and I appreciate you saying just do it, because like it's true. Like you just need to just do it, and then you get it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about looking ahead. So what are your goals and aspirations, as you continue on your reset journey and beyond?
So I would say my goals and aspirations are to, um, going back to the previous question, are when life gets really, really busy, tough, whatever kind of those potholes that get in the way,
Yeah,
I want to just hone in on my planning to be able to attend to my self-care
yeah,
during that time. And again, I've come so far, but I
totally.
know
Yes.
that's well, and it's still an
Yeah,
area of growth for me as somebody
yeah,
who's a lifelong learner.
yeah.
Um, I think continuing to just be build my strength. Like I'm like, man, if I feel this strong
Oh,
right
yeah.
now, if
Yes,
what is it going to look like in a year's time? And
totally.
again, repeating what you said, like time is not promised. Like,
No.
heck yeah, there was a possibility that I would not be here today talking to you. And
Yes.
so knowing that it's not promised and picturing wanting to be an 85-year-old grandma,
Yes.
that's something that when I think of beyond, I want to be a strong, healthy
Yeah.
woman.
Yes.
And I also think it's important to show that to and demonstrate it for my son and
Yes.
my nephews and also my niece.
Yes.
So we're showing that we're taking care of our own selves
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And then just continuing to be able to critically look at food and the choices that I'm making, not in a restrictive way, but in
Mm,
a very um, open and strategic way, knowing that, like you said, you can't do everything all the time,
yes.
but this is a flexible nutrition method.
Yes.
So thinking always it's flexible, what is
Yes.
my plan, and
Yes.
being able to attend to that.
Yes. And I kind of always just say it's like about being mindful and being empowered. And like I call it plate having plate authority. So having authority over like what's going on your plate because you've made a conscious decision that both supports your physical needs, but also what you feel like eating and like working that into your day. Right. And I think there's so much like authority behind that. There's so much power behind that. So many women feel powerless around food and
Mm.
they either feel out of control or like totally controlled, right? And I think it's important to just have peace, like just have that peace. And then finally, I just want to touch on what you said. I think there's a huge ripple effect that happens in our world that many women don't understand when we do, decide to choose us and choose our health and wellness. And we have these little people watching us. And I think as mothers to sons, you have a unique responsibility because you're teaching your son what his wife gets to do in a
Mhm.
marriage as a mother, whatever, right? Where it's you're showing him like moms get to work out, moms don't eat last, moms get to take care of their health and wellness, moms go to the gym and they're strong and fit. Like you're
Mhm.
teaching him to like seek those qualities in a woman, which I think is so powerful. And also showing him that like women get to do those things even when they're a mom, even when they're principal, even when they have a career outside of the home or whatever, right? And then I think as moms to daughters, we have a different responsibility where we're teaching self love in all shapes, forms, whatever. We're teaching a nurtured, peaceful relationship with food. We're showing like we're badass. Like we got biceps just like daddy. It's like,
Just like that.
it's like we're strong too. We can like do things too. We're capable, right?
Yeah.
And teaching them to advocate for their own self care and their own ability to go to the gym and be healthy and whatever, and setting those boundaries from a young age where it's like, no boy's going to tell my daughter, like, oh, you're going to the gym again? Stay home and watch a movie with me. She'll be like, no, I'm going to the gym. I'm like, we'll watch a movie after. That's the
Exactly.
kind of girl she's going to be.
Mhm.
So we just need to get our kids to like meet each other. Just kidding. But just kidding, not kidding. But yeah, so I think like there is that huge ripple effect, right? That we're creating and we have a big responsibility as parents to be leaders and a good role model in that regard. And so I love that you're like in that space. And I think most of the women in the reset community share that vibe and that desire for
Yeah.
their families.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Amazing. I wanted to just give you a minute. Is there anything else that we didn't cover, talk about, or anything that you feel like would be valuable for any woman out there who's listening to this to hear?
Honestly, it's just a repeat of before. Invest in yourself. It's just so important. And when you're living your healthiest, I'll call it best life,
Yeah.
um, in a, in a world where nothing is promised, including time,
Yeah.
um, you are going to feel like your best self. And
Yeah.
so don't hesitate to make those investments in your own self because they will pay back in ways that
Oh,
you don't even realize.
totally. Totally. I completely agree with that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Debbie. My goal and asking you to share, your story and kind of where you're at on your journey was truly to
Mhm.
celebrate you as a powerful woman in our community, your survivorship, where you've gotten to, and just truly spend time reflecting with you on, where you've come from like we mentioned, those first workouts when you were so newly off your finishing your chemotherapy treatments to where you are now, and to just truly provide inspiration, because I think you are just beyond inspirational in every capacity of the word, and just provide encouragement to other women who really are either going through similar experiences or have kind of told themselves a story and gotten themselves kind of into a victimized mindset, or believing that they're truly not worth it. And I
Mhm.
just feel like you have such a powerful story, and I just really wanted to celebrate that with you today. So thank you so much for being my client and for joining me today. I know you're busy, and I do appreciate and value your time so much. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. You know how much I love and appreciate you in my daily life. So thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I